our generation towards this. We're thinking youth training scheme, that sort of thing, but it's not. It's far removed from that. The degree apprenticeship route is a very competitive route to get into, often more competitive than Oxford and Cambridge and other top class universities, because you can do pretty much any course through a degree apprenticeship, come out with a professional qualification, and of course you get paid throughout the whole course. You get a degree at the end as well as a professional qualification, and there are no fees attached to it. You earn money, you don't pay money. So that's why, and you can, there is even now, I think Plymouth has got it up and running, a pathway through the degree apprenticeship to become a doctor. So they are covering a huge range of courses through that route. As I say, they are competitive, and the application process, although there's information available through UCAS on this, the application process is very different. Studying abroad, I'll mention, we do have quite a few of our students who will choose to apply abroad. I have sent out already, and I copied in parents to this, a bit of an information pack for people applying to the USA, but of course that's not the only other country in which you can study. There is a couple of very good companies who specialize in this. The one that I'd recommend is the universityguys.com, and there's a slide about that a little bit later. Gap year, if your children are thinking of applying to a gap year, they still are going to go through the application process this year, but they just defer their entry for a year, and I'll explain that to them rather than to you probably. What I would say is, from experience of doing this for a large number of years now, we want all students to complete a UCAS application, regardless of if they're 100% certain they're not going to university, or 100% certain they're going to study abroad and not go through a UK system. We want them to complete the application. There are two reasons for that. Firstly, it does make them think about, what direction do I want to take post downside? Secondly, possibly more importantly, is if they change their mind, or often if their parents change their mind at the last minute, it's very difficult for us to get that application finished within 24 hours. And we do have, this year actually was the first year I haven't had that, with somebody saying on the day before, or even the day of the final deadline, oh, I want to apply now, and we're starting from zero. So if they've got all this ready, they don't have to submit it, they don't have to apply, but if the application is sitting there ready, that can only be a good thing. Similarly, they might say, I'm going to apply after I've got my A-level results. That's absolutely fine, but if they've got the application written this year, all they have to do is tweak it next year, and if they're off backpacking in Thailand, trying to communicate with us over here to get that application done, if they've got a framework from this year's application cycle ready, it's going to make that so much easier. So, we as a school, there's the sixth form team, we have quite a lot of knowledge about university courses in the UK, but there are over 50,000 of them, and these are some of the slightly odder courses you can do. Golf management is a degree course. Surf science, I think that was quite commonly known, that's down in Newquay. Equestrian psychology, more than just why such a long face. But puppetry is actually a course as well. So lots out there, and that's why research is really so important, and we can't research for you. So what is UCAS? UCAS is the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. It is a processing platform. It doesn't make any decisions. They provide information, advice, support. I personally am not a big fan of their website. I find it quite hard to navigate sometimes, but there's lots on there if you've got the patience. It processes the applications, but it doesn't make decisions. It will make fraud and plagiarism checks are on part of the UCAS system. Now that means things like personal statements, you can't just download one from the internet and pass it off as your own work. It will be detected, it'll be red flagged, and you won't know it's been red flagged. The universities will, we don't, the students don't. They do have links to the exam board. So if somebody has lied about their GCSE qualifications, then that can be picked up by UCAS. So that sort of thing you need to be aware of. UCAS doesn't, as I say, make any decisions. It doesn't give advice on finance or sort of eligibility to study in the UK. They do have quite a lot of information about a degree apprenticeships on their website. As I say, the application process is not centralized. It's not uniform across the country. You're essentially applying to a specific company which has an affiliation with a university. So you apply to the company and then they sort out the university side of it for you. There are lots of considerations for students to make when they're choosing a university. And it's not just, is it Russell Group? Is it Oxford and Cambridge? Is it Ivy League in the USA? All of these labels are not particularly helpful. Russell Group universities are a self-selecting group of research universities, but there are universities like Bath, University of St Andrews, top-level world-class universities who are not members of the Russell Group. So be a little bit careful about labels like that. Ivy League in the USA, for example, it's just a sporting league. There are many top-flight universities which are not part of that group. They all happen to be good universities, but they're not necessarily the only ones. So things like size, things like assessment, where is the university? Is it easily accessible? Is it close to home? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because different students and parents will have different opinions on that. In terms of choosing the course, you might think, I want to study history, but history at one university is very different from history at another university. If you did modern languages at Bath, the focus is on language. If you did modern languages at Cambridge, the focus is on literature. So very different options out there. What's the method of assessment? What's the method of teaching? Lots of universities have blended teaching now. That is to say, some online, some in person, because it's a hangover from COVID. But what suits you best? Is it good value for money? In the years following COVID, lots of universities were quite happy with their online offering, even recorded lectures, because it was saving them money. Were students getting good value for money? Possibly not. On the other hand, some students prefer an online presence than being in the classroom and having to put their hand up in front of others. So it is horses for courses, but find out what is being offered. In terms of assessment, is it all examination? Is it coursework? Is it a mixture of the two? Creative writing at UEA, for example, is 100% coursework. There's no examination. These are things to consider, and the students have already started to explore that at the Universities Fair in Exeter a couple of weeks ago. So, going through UCAS, all the lower six now are signed up onto UCAS and UCAS Hub because they had to create an account to go to the Universities Fair. So that bit's done. They're now starting the research process. A couple of parents already said to me today, they don't really know what they want to do. That, by the way, is the norm. Don't panic if your offspring don't know what they want to do at this stage. They won't in the majority of cases, unless people who know they want to be a doctor or vet, those tend to be the ones where the path is dictated already. But apart from that, they probably don't know what to do yet. And bear in mind that 75% of UK graduate employers don't care what subject your degree was in. It doesn't matter. So even if you're going into something like finance or the economic world, if you haven't got a degree in business management or economics, it doesn't matter. What they're more interested in is, has this person got skills, transferable skills, which have been developed through university education or another route? There are quite a lot of resources again on the UCAS. A careers quiz. I wasn't convinced of it first time I took it, looked at it. I thought it was a bit simplistic, but actually, I think it's deceptively simplistic. And there are also similar quizzes, some more detailed on other platforms. The other platform we use is Unifrog. Come to that a little bit later. God, I used to hate it when people said a little bit later in the middle of a talk. Sounds like it's going to go on forever. We'll come to that in a few minutes. It is accommodation. That's always a big question for students as they're applying to university. So these there is information about this on the UCAS website. Down to nitty-gritty then. What is the process? There are deadlines. Now, I have to say, sometimes it feels like downside pupils think that deadline is the first moment at which they can do something. Of course, it's the last moment at which that thing can be done. We also hear a lot, what's the real deadline? We have that with coursework, they have that with applications, because we will have internal deadlines. The internal deadline is the real deadline. It is worth pointing out, because you're going to be going, a lot of people, we're going through coursework fairly soon. The JCQ, the body which governs examinations in this country, make it very clear. Students must meet internal deadlines. Then those aren't school arbitrary deadlines. If they don't meet a school internal deadline and they're given an extension, that is giving an unfair advantage to a particular student, which then can constitute malpractice. So internal deadlines are important. And the internal deadlines we set up for the UCAS process are there for a reason. So the first thing they do, you can't read that very well, nor can I. So they've registered, that blue square is registered for an account, done that. The second one is they complete the application form. Now this is steps 2 and 3 here, which is why we have internal deadlines. The student completes the application form and they click on submit and they think they've finished. They haven't, because when they submit that form, it doesn't go to UCAS, it goes to me. It doesn't go any further, because then what I have to do is check the application form, make sure that there are no mistakes on it, and the most common mistakes are made surrounding qualifications, like which board do they do for French GCSE. We give them all the information, they ignore it, they submit, we send it back. So once they submit it, 9 times out of 10, there's probably going to be some mistake on there. They say they get to put their A-levels on quite commonly. So things like that. So it comes back to them, it gets bounced back. And if they're not keeping an eye on their emails from UCAS, it doesn't come back from me, it comes from UCAS back to them. If they're not keeping an eye on their emails, then there's going to be a delay. The other thing we have to do at that point is add the predicted grades, add the reference. So there is a process after they've submitted it, which takes time. Once I'm happy that everything is correct, and I do look all through personal statements, and if there's something, if I think this isn't going to serve them well, this statement, I will send it back to them. Then, once it's all done and approved, then it goes off to UCAS. But if we've only got 24 hours for that process, you'll imagine that actually you can see that that could be tricky. And then they start waiting for decisions to come through. These are, well, this is the timeline for 2026 applications. The application opens on the 13th of May. I don't expect anybody to sort of be filling it in at that point, but it is a possibility. The 2nd of September is the first date an application can actually be submitted. You will get copies of this. I mean, feel free to photograph, but don't worry if you don't. I will send it out. And then a couple of really important deadlines. Now, these are the UCAS deadlines, the absolute final one. They're not the school internal deadlines, which I'll show you in a few minutes. The 15th of October, anybody's applying for an early application course, and that is Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, including veterinary medicine and dentistry. There is an early deadline. It's the 15th of October, 6 p.m. that day. UCAS must have received the application. If we try and send it off at 6 on that evening, you will be rejected. So for that reason, we have an internal deadline for those applications of the 30th of September, which gives us 2 weeks to make sure everything is absolutely right. If you have a power cut on the 15th, we can't do anything about it. That sort of thing we have to take into account. For all other applications, it's the 14th of January. This date changes each year. So if you have older children saying, oh no, it's the end of January. No, the 2026 one is the 14th of January, and that's the equal consideration deadline. That means universities have to consider the application equally against all other applications received up to that point. They can't turn around and say, thanks for your application, but unfortunately that course is now full. If you apply after the 14th of January, you absolutely can. You can submit applications right up until June, but universities can then turn around and say, sorry, that course is full. So that it's called the equal consideration deadline. The other dates there are not really important at this point. So, key facts. Register, that's fine. We can start applications soon. They can only have 5 universities on the application form. 5 courses, I should say, because you could have 3 of those courses, different courses at a particular university. And that's not actually as uncommon as you think. So it's 5 choices. You can only apply for a maximum of 4 medical school courses. If you're applying for medicine, you can only have 4 medical schools. Your 5th slot can be used for a related course like biomedical sciences, which doesn't give you a doctor qualification, but it's related. So you can use your 5th slot, but it can't be a medical school. Same for dentistry and veterinary medicine. You can only apply for either Oxford or Cambridge. You can't apply for both. The rationale for both of these is, by the way, is that all of those universities are going to get lots of applications from very worthy candidates. And so it helps them manage their application numbers. It also, particularly Oxford and Cambridge, if you're applying to both, they both have slightly different processes for the application. It puts a lot of pressure on the students, but it's not an option anyway. There is a fee to pay. It's £28.95. That doesn't matter if you've got one choice. You don't have to use all 5 choices. You can submit with one choice. It's still £28.95. You only pay it once. If you've only got one choice on your application, you can add more choices later for free of charge. That's fine. When they submit their application to me, they click on Pay Submit. Okay, so they had to pay at that point. They had to submit, they had to enter a credit card or debit card details, but they don't get charged for it until I send it off to UCAS. So when I bounce it back to them and they change something, they have to click on Pay and Submit again. They're not paying more than once. Okay, so don't worry about that. Importantly, again, for those of us of a certain age, we might think back to the UCCA, ring any bells, that green form, application system where we had to handwrite it all and you had to rank your choices 1 to 5. And so your 5th choice university knew you were their 5th choice. They now can't see what else is on the form. The application is invisible in that sense. They only know, the university only knows you've applied to them. They don't know where else you've applied. If you're applying before the 15th of October and you've got really good predictions, then they probably guessed you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge at the same time, but that's not necessarily the case. So this is our time scale, and these are some really important dates. And it's important that parents and the school, our tutors, we all are singing from the same hymn sheet here, and we collaborate. We're supportive of the students. So 5th to 14th of May is the lower 6 internal exams. We call them predicted grade examinations for a good reason. Come to that in just a couple of minutes. In June, probably in the week of the 18th, if those who are signed up with our Future Smart Careers advisors, they will have one-to-one meetings in that week. On the 18th of June, that's the penultimate Wednesday of term, we will have a whole higher education morning when we will have talks about personal statement writing, degree apprenticeships, I hope, international applications, and we will get them started on their application process. I will drill down to boring granular detail on how that application works. We then have a couple of, the first deadline, which is really important, is the 30th of September. We want any of our students who are applying for Oxford, Cambridge or medicine to have completed their application by that point. So that means they probably would have to work on it over the summer, particularly their personal statement. The 2nd of October, I haven't mentioned conservatoires yet. So conservatoires are degree level institutions which sit slightly outside the UCAS university system. So things like the Royal College of Music, the Royal Academy of Music, those are conservatoires, and the application process, although you do go through UCAS, you go through a different pathway, and the deadline for particularly music is, you can see, way earlier. That's 2nd of October. So if they're thinking about a conservatoire, you can also apply for performing arts, theatre, theatre technology. There's quite a lot in dance. There's quite a lot of that out there. But they would need to talk to me separately about conservatoire applications because it is a slightly different process. 15th of October, as I said, that's the Oxford Cambridge Veterinary Science and Medicine deadline. And then on the 17th of October, oh, sorry, I should go back a page a minute. The 30th of September, we will lock predicted grades for the medics and the Oxford and Cambridge applicants. We won't consider changing predicted grades after that date for those candidates. For the rest of our students, we will lock the predicted grades on the 17th of October. That's not a random date, that's the beginning of half term in October. The other date, which looks slightly arbitrary, is the 21st of November. That's when we would like all applications submitted, done and dusted, off to UCAS. Realistically, I know that we're never going to get 100% hit rate on that deadline. But the advantage of getting it all done and dusted by then is we can get the applications off by Christmas and they don't have to worry about the application anymore. So that's why we have the deadlines there. Partly because when we come back in January, by the time I think term starts on the 6th or the 8th or something of January next year, we've only got a week then for any applications which are still outstanding. That puts quite a lot of pressure on the system. I say the system, me. So we want to try and get it done and dusted before then. So, predicted grades. These are absolutely, probably the most important piece of information that universities will look at when making a decision about an application. Yes, they'll look at the personal statement, generally, not all do. Yes, they'll look at the reference, again, generally, but not all do. But what they will look at is a GCSE profile, but predicted grades for A-level. How do we award them? We are obliged to only award them based on data and evidence. So if I skip all the way to the last point on this slide, we will not, indeed must not, raise a predicted grade simply because a pupil wishes to apply for a particular course or because of pressure from parents. Okay? We are not doing students a service by artificially inflating predicted grades. We get flagged as an unreliable centre. We might get pupils into a course that they're not really suited for, and then they fail later on, or they simply don't get the offers because they don't make the grades. They'll get a prediction, we say we've artificially inflated predictions to 3 A's, and all the universities say, yeah, delighted to have you. You need to get 3 A's at A-level. They're really a BCC candidate. They're not going to get anything. So we keep the predicted grades data-based and fair. How do we make sure they are fair? First of all, predicted grade exams are important, but they're not the only evidence we use. And I said this to the lower six right at the start of the year. Everything they do throughout the year is evidence for their predicted grade. Importantly, that point there, the predicted grade will not be lower than the grade achieved in next term's predicted grade exam, provided, I should say, that exam was taken with full integrity. But what that means is if they've been working at a grade B or C level all year, some people like to coast a little bit, and then put it out of the bag in those exams and they get an A, then we'll predict them an A because we've got the evidence, we've got the data to show that they can achieve that grade. The flip side of that is that candidate who's worked a grade A all year and has a nightmare when it comes to the exams, and suddenly they come up with grade Ds in that exam. Well, we're not going to predict them a grade D when we've got the evidence all year that they can achieve better than that. So it is a fairly robust system. Last year, 47% of our, by the way, the national average for accuracy on predicted grades is 16%. Downside predictions last year were 47% accurate, and the rest of them were only one grade out either way. So we have got a system which works. We don't allow students to resit their lower 6 exams, but the predicted grade we set in May is provisional. They may think, I can do better than that. Good, that's fine. Show us the evidence. So students will get a chance to say, look, I've done this essay, I've done this research, I've done this work, and they can do that all the way up to the 30th of September, for the Oxbridge lot, or the 17th of October. Show us the evidence, we will review the predicted grade. We might not agree, but if we've got the evidence, we will look at it, and we will. We'll be fair to you. I would say as a caveat to that, by the way, if people are applying to Oxford and Cambridge, we're pretty much expecting them to get those top grades in the summer anyway. If they're realistic, plausible Oxford and Cambridge candidates, they shouldn't really be having to fight to get predicted grades raised. The application itself, personal details, all this sort of thing you would expect to see. You click on a slide on a tab, what do you call them? And it will take you to that section of the application. They fill in the details. It's surprising how often people get their own name wrong, or forget to use capital letters or that sort of thing. So that's the sort of thing I'm looking for when I go through my checks. Education, that's the one where we find the most mistakes, as I alluded to earlier, because they've got the wrong qualifications. We don't just do GCSEs here. Some of our qualifications are IGCSEs. And so we do get details about that. I don't always check them, but I will. The personal statement, there's been quite a lot in the press about, people think the personal statement's gone. It hasn't gone. It hasn't actually really changed either, to be honest. All they've done is change the structure. So whereas previously it was one long piece, now it's divided into 3 sections. But in fact, Unifrog, the platform we use to write our personal statements on, has always had it in 3 sections anyway. So there's been no major change in actually what we put into the personal statement, and it comes up in just a couple of seconds. The reference is written by the school. It's actually written by tutors initially, actually. So all subject teachers will feed into it. The tutors then put that into a reference. Then it comes to me. I tweak it to make sure it's in, that we've got the information we need, and then that goes off as part of the application. We are happy to let students look at the reference. We're not going to say anything which is going to damn their application, but equally, we're not going to say things which are blatantly untrue. But we're happy to share that. We'll share it they can read it on screen. We don't give them a copy of it. The personal statement then, this is the thing that causes people most grief. And we'll do a session on writing the personal statement next term. We do it on Unifrog, again, just coming up in a second, because that way tutors and I can edit the personal statement without us having to play email tennis with one version going backwards and forwards, and us never really knowing which version is now current. So if we do it all on Unifrog, we're all looking at the same document at the same time. But it's in 3 sections covering these questions. Why do you want to study this course or subject? How have your qualifications and studies helped you prepare? And what else have you done to prepare to, and why are these experiences useful? It's exactly the same as what we've been doing in personal statements for donkey's years, just now in 3 sections. And the overall limit is the same of 4,000 characters. When universities look at the application, this is what they're looking at. Personal statement, as I say, people do say, well, not all universities look at personal statements. And some universities say, we don't really look at the personal statement. Some say, some have different departments with different policies within that university. You don't really know. And it's really dangerous to think they're not going to look at the personal statement. Even those who say we don't look at the personal statement when it comes to making offers may well go back to the application come results day. You've been offered ABB, you've got ABC. We've got another candidate offered AAB who's got ABC. Which one? We've got one place left. Who do we give it to? Let's go back to the application. Now we look at the personal statement. And that's what they do, even though they said they won't. So it's always dangerous to think personal statement doesn't matter. Some universities will offer admissions test. Obviously, there's a UCAT for medics, LNAT for some law courses, not all. Oxford and Cambridge will have an admissions test. Maths at Imperial does as well. Interviews, again, Oxford and Cambridge and medics, absolutely, definitely. Other universities have interviews for some more or less formal. Some are invited to an applicant's day, like experience day, when in fact they are being assessed. And portfolio for anything towards architecture or art, they'll be asked to produce a portfolio as well. And they'll be supported by their teachers here for that. Then you start waiting for decisions. Once it's submitted, you start, and universities will make one of three decisions. Unsuccessful, obviously undesirable. We try not to say rejected, but I just tried to say to somebody the other day, they said, I've been rejected. I said, no, you were unsuccessful. No, rejected, so, okay, right. Conditional offer is the most common. And first on the list there, but going backwards up, is the unconditional offer. Unconditional is exactly what it says. We're going to give you a place no matter what. We've had one this year. We shouldn't be getting any because universities were asked not to make unconditional offers to pre-A-level candidates. But it does happen still. The unconditional offer is great if you get one, so it means take the rest of the year off. But that's also the disadvantage, of course. If you stop working through the rest of your upper sixth year, and then you're supposed to go to university and start again, it's not necessarily going to help you. There's something called the conditional unconditional. And again, it's frowned upon by UCAS. University is asked not to do it. This is where a university says, we'd love to make an offer of 3 Bs. If you make us your firm choice, the offer is unconditional, which is a little bit naughty of them because they're putting an undue pressure on those students to apply for that university. Conditional offer, as I say, is the most common. And an offer of 3 Bs means if you get 3 Bs, they are obliged to take you. The universities will also look at near misses. It's not uncommon for people to miss their offer by 1, sometimes 2 grades and still get the place. The students then got a decision to make. Once they got all 5 of their decisions through, they have to decide, okay, which is going to be my firm choice and what's going to be my insurance choice. You don't have to have an insurance choice, but it's silly not to. But both courses should be somewhere you're quite happy to go. There's no point accepting a place as an insurance offer and thinking, well, I really would never want to go there anyway. Bit of a waste. So the insurance offer, logically, should be lower than your firm choice. Your firm choice is where you really want to study. And let's say the offer is 3 Bs. Your second choice was another course, but the offer is AAB. If you haven't made the 3 Bs, you're not going to make the AAB either. So your insurance choice should, there are circumstances where there's a bit of sort of tactical thinking to be done around that, but that's basically the situation. If somebody's in a position where they've been unsuccessful in all 5 of their choices, or they've decided they don't want to go to any of those places that they'd originally put down, then they can decline or withdraw. And then Extra opens. Extra is free of charge. Gives you the opportunity to, if you've got 5 unsuccessful or you've declined 5, then you can add one more choice at a time, one more choice. Wait to hear back from that university. If they say yes and you want it, accept it. If they say yes and you don't want it, decline, and then you can add another choice. So the extra, it's one choice at a time, but it's a bit of a safety net. Sometimes useful for people to suddenly realize that actually they don't want to do French at any of the universities they've applied to. They want to do English instead. They can withdraw and put an extra in. Clearing is generally for people who get results that they weren't expecting. So clearing tends to be used after results day, but it actually opens earlier than that. So clearing, most common scenario is they've missed their offers. And it used to be called the pool, I think, didn't they? And so they then look at what courses are available out there, and you go through clearing, and because there'll be other people who haven't made their offers as well, so places have opened up all over the country. Sometimes, again, you can get into medicine through clearing. So it's not just the lower tariff universities, it can be some of the higher tariff universities as well. And there are two ends to clearing. There's the people, those who've underperformed in their A-levels and BTECs, but those who've done better than expected. They've predicted 3Bs all the way through, that's what they're on course for, that's what they've applied for, and suddenly they come out with 3 A stars and think, well, now the world's my oyster. So what do you do? Well, you can go through clearing. You can say, hey, look, I've got 3 A stars. Will you now consider me? Absolutely. That upwards movement is not available for Oxford and Cambridge for independent schools. FYI. The other option, of course, there is, okay, this hasn't gone as I expected. I'm going to take a year off now and rethink and reapply next year. If they want to reapply after they've left downside, or the scenario I mentioned earlier, where although they've got the application ready, they didn't submit it this year, we will still support them the following year. They can still apply through us and they still get our full support. So don't worry too much about that. So what now? Research, research, research. What can you do to support them? There is a parental UCAS newsletter, and the link is on the slide somewhere. I mentioned Unifrog a few times. Unifrog is quite separate from UCAS. Our students have been signed up to Unifrog since they joined the school. We use it for careers information. We use it for university research. It is a superb platform for university research. You plug in your predicted grades, you plug in the course you're interested in, and it will show you all the courses in the country. Aspirational, these are slightly above your predicted grades. Solid, well within your reach. Safe, if things go wrong. And then if you click on, you see I've highlighted 4 there. If I were to click on the next page, it will take me to those universities. It shows me on a map where they are in the country. It takes me links to their course pages, their course requirements, some information about those universities, what it's like to study there and study that particular course, what's useful to read to help to get into that course. Lots of information on there to help you make your shortlist. It's also, as I mentioned, got a personal statement builder. And this is the only place, if people want me to look at their personal statements, I will only look at them if they're on Unifrog. I won't look at them if they've sent me an email with a Word document. Because, as I say, if the corrections I need to make are just punctuation or grammar or spelling, and I'm a linguist, so those are important things to me, then it would be silly to send it back and say you need to put a comma after that line. I can just do it on there without going backwards and forwards. Students can see what we've done, and the tutors have got the same access. They can make corrections. So the personal statement, it needs to be grammatically accurate, it needs to be factually accurate, but it needs to show passion. But if we do it for Unifrog, it makes the whole process much easier. They then will copy and paste the final version onto UCAS because it's 2 separate systems. But that's what we use Unifrog for. It also has really useful information for those students wanting to apply outside of the UK. We've got all these tiles, that's what I was looking for. Tiles, the know-how library, careers library. You might think, okay, I don't know what I want to do. These are the subjects I'm studying. So go to the subject library. These are the subjects I'm studying. Click on that and it says, these are careers which people with your subjects go into. And you can click on there and look into a bit more of the careers. Or conversely, this is the career I want to go into. What would be a good degree for me? So all that sort of information is on there. Then drill down to all these tiles here, UK universities, European universities, Australasian, I should say, universities. So if they're thinking of applying abroad, lots of really useful videos and guidance tips on Unifrog. It is a wealth of information, slightly better, in my opinion, organized than the same information that you might find on UCAS. UCAS doesn't deal with internationals, by the way. If you are thinking of applying for globally, internationally, then, as I say, there are companies out there. Some are more reliable than others. One that we know is reliable is the universityguides.com. They have some free advice, lots of information on their website. They will take you through the whole application process. If you're applying to the USA, for example, it's a very different system. They will take you, you can actually sign up with them and they will manage your application with you, not for you. But then there is a fee and it's quite expensive, I'll just warn you. They do a lot, the business model for this company is they do a lot for schools free of charge. They will come to talk to us next term. They will come down regularly. The guy who runs it, actually, he did an Organ Scholarship at Downside, so he's very familiar with us. But if you want to engage the services fully, then that's where they make their money. But a really good site. As I say, when I send this through to you as a PDF, this link here will take you to an introduction to Unifrog. So these are all these slides, Unifrog, if you want to see what is available on there for students. And then finally, we've got the UCAS parents sign up there, and that's on the slide as well. You can get in touch with Unifrog. No, UCAS, sorry. And slightly breathlessly, I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover. So, question. Well, first of all, actually, my colleagues, did I miss anything obvious? Nope. Questions. Has anybody got any questions? Yes. Nope. It's all gone. Nope. The order is invisible, so they can't see it. Yeah, but that is not even an option to do it. Yeah. Yes, but we pay for it. School pay for it. Yeah, yeah. Sorry? It's just for the children, and they do occasionally. So they will allow us a parental access code, but it's only valid for 90 days. So every time we sort of launch it, then it then disappears, and I always forget. But it's yeah, it's a really useful platform. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Then your other 4 choices are.
Yeah. Okay, good question. So the question there was, if you're applying for Oxford and Cambridge and medicine level, the deadline is the 15th of October. Your other 4 choices, obviously, the deadline is January. How does that work? Generally, what they'll do is they'll put all 5 choices down when they submit their application in October. But there is the facility, if they wanted to, they can just put Oxford or Cambridge down and add the other 4 choices later. But it's the same application. So it's going to be the same personal statement, the same reference, same information on there. But if they want to, the things, if they know Oxford and Cambridge is on the list, but they're not quite sure what the other 4 are, they can add the other 4 later. You can't change them once you've submitted, no. Yes. No, that's a good question. So when do the students have to make their final choices? It's the 5th of June. It's very late. Universities, this year, the deadline for universities to have made their decisions is the 19th of May. So we've got quite a lot of people at the moment. If you've got friends or children in the upper sixth at the moment, lots of decisions have come through already. Quite a lot of them are still waiting. And of course, that they start to think, well, they don't like my application. That's not true at all. And different universities, and again, even different departments within a single university may be making their offers at different times. We had people back who submitted in October and had 4 of their choices or 3 of the choices back within, I think, 48 hours, but they're still waiting for the other 2, which means, of course, you can't make your firm an insurance choice until you've either had all 5 decisions through, or let's say you've got 3 through, and then you can withdraw from the other 2, but you can't make your firm an insurance choice until those 5 decisions are concrete. Yes, you can. Okay, so so some students will do that. They will apply. They might want to do. If they're very, very different, it's more problematic. I'll come to that in just a second. But yes, quite commonly they might go for biology and biomedical sciences, for example. In which case you craft the personal statements to hit both of them. Economics or management. Again, you can craft a personal statement, and universities are aware that people are going to be doing that. So you try to make, you can craft a personal statement like that. If, and we have had this, you've got a medic who's got their 4 medical choices, and they think, well, if I don't get to medical school, I want to study history. Okay, then your personal statement, there's no way you can cover those 2. What you do in that scenario is you write to a separate personal statement, you send it directly to your history course. It's rare, but it does happen. But yeah, you can have, so you can first of all have different subjects, and you just try and make sure the personal statement hits everything, or sometimes different courses at one university, and you've got to try and make sure so yeah. Universities are used to that, so it's not, Emma. Yeah. No. So I mean, Oxford and Cambridge very sort of publicly, because it comes up all the time, have these sort of looks like they are favouring state school candidates over independent schools. There is some evidence that it's happening at Oxford and Cambridge. There's no evidence it's happening elsewhere in the university system. And even with Oxford and Cambridge, generally the right candidates get in. They will look at contextual admissions, so but generally it doesn't apply to downside school pupils, because one of the criteria of that is free school meals. Of course, some people think they get them here, bless them. You pay for them. But occasionally we do have students who are here on bursaries, and they look, it's postcode. They look at postcode. That's one of the things. Yeah, they'll look at home address. Home address, yeah. And the other thing they do look at is this child the first person in their family to go to university? And that's a question on the application form. So they do look at that, yeah. But as I say, it doesn't, because obviously we're an independent school, a fee-paying independent school, contextual, widening participation is what they call it, is less prevalent. It does happen though. I don't think so, but I think they do look at. Again, it's widening participation. Yeah. You know how the landscape has shifted over the years. try and get more people into tertiary education. Yes. Yep.
The personal statement really personal subject. I read this and I thought it was very little about personal side. Just get me known this round of university, other personal statements.
Yeah.
So I have a real sort of personal or personal statement, one size fits all. Tailor a personal statement. How does it work?
So the personal statement, it should be written with the student's voice, not with their teacher's voice, not with the parent voice. It should be their voice, and it should be what they want to say. So in that sense, it is personal. How much do you tailor it? If you're applying to Oxford and Cambridge, then, so the general advice on personal statements is 80% academic, focused on the course, 20% extracurricular. If Oxford and Cambridge, the weight on the given to the academic side of things is greater. So although there are 3 sections, they don't have to be equally long or equally weighted. But you need to, the personal statement, the key to it, for whichever course you're applying for, is are they really interested in this subject? And they know that application is going to 5 universities, and so they're aware of that. But what they're all looking for, key thing is, are they really interested in this subject? And if so, what have they done to show that? Now, if it's a sports application, then obviously their first team rugby playing, whatever, is going to be more important than if it's an engineering application. So in that sense, yeah, and we help them craft the personal statement to meet their requirements for the courses to which they're applying. How personal is it? If you look at personal statements from a particular school, you can see, you can almost tell, I mean, so obviously within the CAMFA group, it's a group of independent schools of which we remember. I look at personal statements from Prior Park, from KES sometimes, because we tend to sort of help each other out with Oxford applications, with that interviewing. So you're looking at personal statement, and you can see a sort of school style. We probably have that here as well. So yeah. Genevieve. Things that you can do to show you're interested. There are online courses called MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses, which are and again, if you on Unifrog, there's a MOOC tile. It shows you what's available. There's a little sort of university level courses often, which are put out there. You can do that in your own time. You don't have to be an undergraduate to do it. I did one on critical thinking once out of interest because I was never quite sure what critical thinking meant, to be honest. So I thought I'd do the course and find out, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. So MOOCs on Unifrog, actually they've got a new facility called Courses, which are slightly more accessible than MOOCs, because MOOCs can be, because they're produced by universities, they can be a bit high level. Reading around your subject. If it's visiting places, if you're applying for modern languages, you know, showing you've been to the country, you've enjoyed being in that country and culture, that sort of thing. But Oxford and Cambridge, they're quite interested in what are you reading? What have you read? Not just a list of books, though. It's I read this, and this is what I got out of it. This is what I found challenging or interesting or enlightening. This is what I disagreed with. So have you thought about what you read? That's much more important than just a list of what you've read. So it's that sort of thing. So clearing opens in July. And there's something called self-release clearing. So let's say you've got an application in, you've got your 5 choices, you get to sort of June and think, oh God, I don't want to go to any of these places, but I do want to go to university in September. So you can then withdraw, and you'll go into clearing at that point. The other access path into clearing is if on results day You either haven't got the grades you wanted, you automatically go into clearing, or you've got better grades than you want, then you withdraw and you go into clearing. So yes, okay, so once you make your firm and insurance choice, your other 3 are automatically declined. Yeah, and you can then reapply to those. If you know, for example, some people, particularly if they do better than they thought at A level, and so the Oxbridge scenario is sort of one of them, where they didn't get into Oxford or Cambridge the first time round, which is not uncommon. Then they get better A-level results. They got the A-level 3 A stars, and they think, well, I'm going to go for Oxford or Cambridge again now. So Oxford or Cambridge, I should say. And they think, well, but I had a place at Exeter. Are they going to be cross that I've withdrawn? I want to reapply to there in case. No, you can reapply. They don't hold it against you to reapply the following year. There is no sort of, they know things change. Yes. Oh, you go through extra first. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think I'll send this presentation out now. Hopefully, we'll send the recording out as well. I've been wearing a microphone. I don't know if it's worked or not. Has there been ever any questions from our online audience? Overseas pupils are attractive to universities in the UK because they generate higher fees. And that's really the only thing I really say. But importantly, if English is not your first language and you don't have first language GCSE, English language, then there'll be an English language requirement you need to meet. And that's really important for international students to know that. IELTS is the International English Language Testing System, which is the most common English language qualification that's international globally for all English-speaking universities, whether they be in Australia, US, or over here. An IELTS score is generally the requirement. Importantly, IELTS only has a shelf life of 2 years. So if you took it in 5th form, you can't use it to apply to university after. And similarly, if you take it in the lower 6 and you applied post A level, then it's probably going to expire. But it's the IELTS. Yep. In terms of tuition fees in the US, in the UK are set, capped at 9,000 at the moment. I think they're about to go up a little bit, but not significantly. Sorry? No. Yes. The US is going to be more expensive. They don't have any, even for home students over there, they don't have any cap as such. It's all sort of private. If you're in New York State, then SUNY, for example, State University in New York, is cheaper for New York residents, but of course that doesn't really count for us. Your fees will be on Unifrog, yeah. Yeah, I think Republic of Ireland. Yeah, it's worth looking at Republic of Ireland. Yeah, I haven't checked the fees recently, but I think that's still reciprocal. Yeah. And the application for Irish universities, I'm talking Republic of Ireland, not Northern Ireland is in part of UCAS. Republic of Ireland is a completely separate system, but literally you can start from scratch and have the application finished in about 30 minutes. Yes, so easy. Yes, really easy. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for coming. Have a lovely Easter. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.